Back a few eras. We're going to talk about antiques now. So many of us love to go antiquing, but we don't necessarily know exactly what we should be looking for.
Yes, well, we've got a lot to show you, and antiques are making a very strong comeback. They've always been popular, but it's great to mix antiques with modern spaces, and you can see the way we've taken these beautiful antiques and they've been covered in linen, so it gives sort of a modern upholstery as opposed to silk, damasks, and velvets, and it integrates it well. The first one we have over here, this gilded chair, is Louis XV from 1710, 1774. And that period was about bronze mounts. You see the gold mounts on furniture, a lot of gilded furniture, very curvy, a lot of shell motifs. And what you'll notice in a Louis XV piece is the top part is asymmetrical, so it often curves in one direction. The arms are set back. Now, original pieces from the 1700s, very expensive, though it's really become very reasonable as of late because of the waning of antiques over the last decade. Now they're becoming popular. It's a great time to buy them. But you can buy pieces, even this chair from 1860 is a reproduction that was made in 1860 of something from 1760. So it's still an antique, but it's not of the period.
Right.
It represents the period, so this would be more affordable than buying a piece from 1760, still an antique, but you had pieces made in the 1800s that were reproductions of things in the 1700s.
That's pretty cool that we're still they were reproducing it just a century later, and we're still reproducing it now. So that is timeless style and decor.
Now, Louis XVI is a much neoclassical period. It was right after this, and it was 1774 to 1792. Short period because unfortunately he had his head chopped off.
Right.
So a little problem. Oh well. A little problem that stopped that era. But it was that whole wheat thing that was a problem in the cake and the bread. But he was not probably a bad guy, but he was trying to reform things. He introduced religious freedom to France, so you can practice any religion, tried to change things, and the monarchy and the nobility really didn't like his changes. So they sort of helped the push to the
guillotine
but in Louis XVI, you'll notice the legs are straighter. They're not curved like Louis XV. A Louis XVI chairs, the arm always comes to the front. Even though the arm is set back, it comes to the front here where it was set back. Oh, I see. Okay. Very refined, almost modern, neoclassical. We think of Roman and Greek and very refined.
Lovely.
Then we have Gustavian and King Gustav III. This is 1772 to 1809, and this chair is from that period. Again, neoclassical, influences of Egypt, India. You can see the heads here, sort of the Egyptian heads on the arm. Yep. Royal furniture of the Gustavian period was gilded and painted, and casual furniture, when you see Gustavian furniture, which is so fabulous, is all painted in like creams and grays and light greens and light blues. That was because in Sweden, very long winters, very dark. So they wanted light furniture to sort of reflect the light and keep the spaces quite light. Nice. He didn't have a great ending too. He was assassinated.
Oh dear. Oh wow.
Not the best. So, but gorgeous pieces and Gustavian furniture. If you see like chests of drawers and bed and armoires that are painted in those soft grays and creams, I just love them.
Of that. That's beautiful.
Now we have George III. George III was the king in the late part of the Georgian period. That's where Georgian, the name Georgian comes from, King George. Okay. So the first two era, the beginning of the Georgian period was walnut. The later period, George III, is mahogany. A lot of influence from Asia. If you see on this chair, it's called Chinese Chippendale. Yeah. And you see these Chinese patterns. This was a neoclassical period. Also, you've heard of Chippendale, the man Thomas Chippendale. Robert Adam, the architect, Sheridan. These were all cabinet makers. These weren't peers. These were actual men that made the cabinet. So when you hear Chippendale, there was a man named Chippendale. There was a man named Sheridan. George III, you probably remember the movie The Mad King George. Yep. So he had a little problem, and it was undiagnosed, but it was a sort of dementia. They're not sure how he got it. He was institutionalized by his son, so always be good to your kids.
You should.
Because he locked his father up and became the king. But gorgeous period. You'll notice these chairs, always the front is carved, the back is plain.
Okay.
So a lot of this furniture is pushed around the perimeter of the room to the wall, so it wasn't important. The same with a lot of the French furniture. Even this, Gustavian, this might have been put around the perimeter of the room, so they didn't really have to put a lot of effort into that.
These are all the things you need to be thinking about when you do your antiques buying, though. And what a reflection on what's happening with colonialism in the world and exploration when you look at the details on all this furniture.
They always represent a moment in time. They are not just furniture styles, they are a moment in time. Like, this was a very enlightened period.
Right.
You know, it's just a, if you read about it, it's so fascinating.
And our last piece here.
Our last piece is in the 20th century called Art Deco. Art Deco started after the First World War, but really 1925, the big decorative exposition in Paris. That's where you get the word Art Deco. And it was all about the airplane, the train, new materials, very streamlined and very modern. This was quite a reaction to all of this furniture.
That's right. Mass production, the future, incredible.